Hey everyone, here we have another video. I would like to talk to you about critical thinking. It seems a very logical thing, right? You get information and you check if it's true. That is basically what critical thinking comes down to. You find something, you find yourself interested in something, you find yourself wanting to believe something. And instead of just taking it at face value, you choose to do a little research. I remember way back when, before we all had our computers at the tip of our fingers, I would be in restaurants with my parents and we would do these little table games where we would come up with different cities around the world, going A to Z. So like A, Amsterdam, B, Berlin, and all the way through. And whenever we would come across something that we would disagree on, my parents would say, when we get back home, we're gonna look this up. We never did because by the time you got back home, a lot of other stuff happened and you forgot about it. But they would always, whenever they had a disagreement about what they believed was right, they would go look it up, or at least have the intent to look it up. And they would look it up in an atlas, in an encyclopedia, in a library, even. They would go to physical, written down sources to fact check. And that is where I learned my critical thinking. To this day, when someone introduces something and I feel like I'm being taken in, and it is something that seems quite important, I want to see where it's coming from. I start to wonder, is this actually true? Or is it someone's interpretation? Is it actually done right? Or is it an assumption based on something that's questionable? So I want to check that for myself. And here's the thing, you cannot check everything. It is impossible. You can't. The second you walk outside and you go into a store, you're being influenced by everything around you. The second you turn on your computer or your phone, you're being influenced. The second you turn on the TV, you're being influenced. The second you meet people, you're being influenced. So you cannot possibly check everything. And it will be crazy to do so because what are you going to do with your mind, right? You are never going to sleep again. You're not going to focus on anything else because you're going to be distracted by mundane shit that doesn't really matter. But when it comes down to the big issues, to things that may influence your relationships, to things that may polarize you with people you care about, with things that may be politics related, policy related, anything like that, anything that could in fact influence your life in a big way. I would say it is worth being critical about it. And so many of us have kind of stopped knowing how to do that. If I'm going to give a completely made up crazy example, because I don't want to go into the actual things right now to keep this a little objective. Let's say we're approaching Easter and someone comes to me on maybe my Facebook and said, Marjolein, I know it's crazy, but the Easter Bunny is real. They have footage, they have videos, they have eyewitness accounts, and there is this website that is full of them, and there's this entire group of people who are behind this, who are believing this, and who are saying this is true so much that I've decided to believe that this is the truth, this is my truth, and I want to invite you to this truth. Okay? Now I've been raised to believe that the Easter Bunny does not exist. But this person seems to be convinced that proof has arisen that the Easter Bunny is real. Now, I could choose to say, This is my friend. I trust my friend. And yeah, sure, there are videos here, there are eyewitness accounts here. Must be real. And I could then search for other reasons why the Easter Bunny apparently is real. Or I could look at this website. I could look into these eyewitness accounts and look at what people they are. Are they even real people? And who knows? These videos, is it shaky? Is it real? Does it seem doctored? I can go look at that. And it might take me 5 minutes, maybe 10, depending on how much of a deep dive I want to do. But that is critical thinking. And here's the thing that I think a lot of people forget. Let's take this Easter Bunny example, right? If one person decides to share the story that the Easter Bunny is real, and they gather all this information and all this proof, and million people start believing the same thing, and this shit starts trending. Now we got something interesting going on. Because of the amount of people believing this Easter Bunny thing, others who are a little more susceptible to influence, who are maybe a little less trained in critical thinking, will now think, if so many people are believing this, it must be true. And honestly, even people who are very good at critical thinking will still fall for this. If all these people, if a million people believe in this Easter Bunny, then it must be the truth. Then the Easter Bunny must be real, because a million people can't be wrong. A million people can't be crazy enough to believe something that is not true, so it must be true. Well, no. If a million people decide to light something up, it doesn't make it the truth. If the facts are right, that makes it the truth. If you can fact check it and you can lead it back to its source and it still makes sense, that makes it the truth. The amount of people with the same opinion doesn't make it true. And that is something that I think a lot of people with social media and everything going on, a lot of people forget this. Another thing that we tend to forget is this thing where two separate issues are linked together and are presented as true. And let's see if I can make an example with the same Easter Bunny. Let's say people believe the Easter Bunny is real. At the same time, a lot of farmers seem to report eggs missing from their chickens, or their chickens not laying as many eggs, right? So someone who believes one and notices the other might say, see, the Easter Bunny is real because he's taken all the eggs. All those eggs, those chickens, they're not laying less eggs. No, the Easter Bunny took them. That is now a fact. It is presented as a fact. Two possibly completely separate issues. But because it is logic in our mind to link them, if one person does that, it's no big deal. If 1,000 people do that and broadcast it all over the internet, people are going to pick up on it and people are going to think, cause, effect, this is reality. The Easter Bunny is real and the proof is eggs are gone missing. Now, who knows? Maybe that's the case. But maybe those chickens had not been laying eggs for the past 10 years. Maybe it was an issue for 10, 20, 30 years already. People only now decide to look into it and notice it and bring it up to the forefront. So you just don't know. You know if you check it out. You know if you're going to go back in history, if you're going to do that fact check, all of that. but you need to actually be aware of that possibility. Otherwise, whenever someone shows you something that makes sense to you, you are just gonna take it at face value, which is okay. I mean, if you want to live like that, that is all you. But just know that that is the moment that you are not thinking critically. And if someone at some point is going to show you some evidence to the contrary, and you're going to be all high and mighty, you may lose it. And here's the thing, and I think this may be the most important thing of all. Even the people who are very good at critical thinking will have massive blind spots. I will have massive blind spots into things that I will just take at face value because it makes sense to me and I didn't even realize. I didn't even think to fact check that because it would make that much sense to me. So we all have blind spots when it comes to critical thinking. So do not think you are above this. Do not think you're high and mighty and know everything factually. Be open, communicate. If someone has the opposite idea of you, ask why. Ask what they believe they know. Tell what you believe you know. Compare notes. See what informations your phones bring up. Question each other about it. Invite yourselves or both of you to do that deep dive. And you may both find that you're not as sure as you were before. You may find that you are even surer than before. It doesn't matter, but at least then you're open-minded enough to keep that conversation going, to stimulate that little extra step to fact check. And it's just that. It can be that simple. And if you actually choose to do it, it is so much easier to not alienate people from life, to keep that contact going, to keep that connection going, because we live in an incredibly polarizing world. And the media, the social media, and every single thing that the world is throwing at us is making this worse. So right here, right now, it is up to us to be vigilant enough and kind enough to help each other out with that. So that is just something I wanted to share with you. And one more small thing. I'm going to deviate from the Easter Bunny example. But one thing that we need to not forget, that I think a lot of people are underestimating. Way back when, and I mean 50 years ago, actually less, but let's go 50. When we were given death tolls, when we were given statistics, they were literally statistics. They were numbers and percentages. Right now, we live in a world where every number and percentage and statistic is presented to us with a name, a face, and a story. That means that when we believe something, we don't just have numbers. We have personal experiences and triggers of commonality and humanity and empathy that trigger our beliefs to go bigger and to become more personal. And whatever you believe, as soon as that happens, and that happens with all of us, our beliefs get magnified because of the human connection. So I need you to realize that there is an emotional component that gets triggered. And that is not just the beliefs itself or statistics that get triggered the way they used to. So this will make you extra susceptible to influence. And I need you to get that. I need you to know that. You don't have to do anything about that, but just be aware of it. What used to be statistic once are personal stories now. And that works on our empathy, that works on our sympathy, that works on reflecting on our humanity. And that is great. But it also makes the ability to divide us greater. So keep that in mind, that it is the exact same thing in essence than it was 50 years ago when it was presented as statistics. So don't be completely fooled by that. Don't think that it's bigger than it actually is, just because the numbers start to have named faces and stories. That's just something I want to leave you with. So that is for critical thinking. I figured it was time someone made a little story about it. So I hope you learned something, and if not, well, then I hope you enjoyed me talking. I really hope you're going to have a great day, have a great weekend, have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.